Many things made Concorde distinctive, but there are three key things that made her the technological success that she was. Three things that the designers got absolutely right. The first is the intake system. As Concorde flies, she's traveling at 1,350 miles per hour, but the engines could only take air at 500 miles an hour, so we had to slow down the air before it reached the front of the engine. This was done in the intake, 11 foot long. Inside there are two movable ramps. Those go up and down and generate shock waves that slow the air down as it comes through the intake to present it at the engine face at the right speed. It also generates compression and consequently a fair amount of thrust. Those ramps have to be precisely positioned, and it was the computers that positioned those ramps that made Concorde the success where some of the alternative SSTs could not fly at the same speed for the same range with the same efficiency. Another key aspect that made Concorde a success was the ability to trim her without moving the flying controls. All aircraft, indeed all vehicles as they accelerate, the centre of lift, the point through which all the lift acts, moves aft. The centre of gravity, the point through which all the weight acts, stays in the same place. So the lever arm between the two increases. What conventional airplanes do is to move flying controls to counteract that. Movement of those flying controls means there's an increase in drag. The designers of Concorde didn't want that. They wanted to make sure that lever arm stayed the same, so that as the centre of lift moved back, the centre of gravity moved back to match it, and the flying controls could be kept streamlined. And we did that by pumping fuel from a tank right at the very front of the airplane to a tank at the very back. That balancing made Concorde efficient and effective, and was also copied by some long-range subsonic airliners. Centre of gravity movement alone wouldn't have been sufficient to keep Concorde perfectly balanced. It acts in conjunction with a very sophisticated wing. Everybody looks at Concorde, pictures of her and models of her, and thinks the wing's a fairly simple triangular shape. That's actually not true. When you get really close to the aircraft, you can see that designers put in some very sophisticated curves. It's a very complex aerodynamic shape. And what that complex shape does is to restrict the movement of the centre of lift back to enable us to keep the movements between the centre of lift and the centre of gravity within range. Without that sophisticated shape, the centre of lift would move further back than we could accommodate by the movement of centre of gravity. Therefore, the airplane would not have been able to fly supersonically for over 2.5 hours or all the way across the Atlantic between London and New York in 3 hours and 20 minutes. That was the invisible, really clever part of the wing design.